Hi guys, it's Omer from MMOs.com. I'm doing another quick weekly news recap of all major MMO news and announcements for the week ending March 13th, 2017. This is episode number 86 of the recap, and the first bit of news this week comes from In Mass regarding Tera, and it's a big one. Tera is headed to PlayStation 4 and Xbox One later this year. I think this is actually a great move for Tera, as the game's action combat makes it a great fit for consoles, and the console versions will include the entirety of Tera's expansive MMORPG game world, according to In Mass, which I assume means that all the current content will be up to date when it launches. Unfortunately, beyond the announcement, there's not much else to work with. No word on a release date beyond later this year, no word on any kind of cross-platform compatibility, but if I had to guess, I think it's safe to assume that each platform will have its own servers and characters, similar to just about every other console MMORPG. I've said it before, and I'll say it again, I think these free-to-play MMORPGs have a huge untapped market on console, so expect more and more of these games to launch over there. Up next, a mind-blowing statistic about Dungeon Fighter Online. In an interview with VentureBeat, Nexon CEO Owen Mahoney revealed that Dungeon Fighter Online has earned more money since its release than all of the Star Wars movies combined in terms of box office sales, with Dungeon Fighter earning $8.7 billion to date and Star Wars making about $7.6 billion to date. And remember, these Star Wars numbers are only for box office sales, but it's still a mind-blowing statistic. And just to give you some additional context, according to a 2016 estimate, World of Warcraft earned about $9.3 billion in lifetime revenue. These are numbers that they earned all time since their release. And given that DFO is actually earning more money than World of Warcraft on a yearly basis, expect DFO to out-earn WoW's lifetime numbers probably in the next few years. And this is especially true because WoW's numbers are off their peaks, everybody already knows this, while Dungeon Fighter Online is actually making more money every single year. They're hitting new records every year, thanks to its monstrous success in China. DFO is a monster, again, mainly because of China. Speaking of China, next up is some odd industry news from Nexon regarding China. The company's stock price plunged 7% after China implemented a ban on the release of all new games made in South Korea. This obviously affects every company in South Korea, not just Nexon, as they won't be able to launch their games in China, which is the world's largest gaming market. The reasons behind the ban are political, as the United States recently installed anti-missile systems in South Korea to fend off against North Korea, and China wasn't happy because their radars can detect Chinese missile sites and blah blah. And China got mad, so they banned all South Korean games from launching in China. Luckily, it won't affect current games, just new games going forward. And it's ultimately pretty crazy how real-world political drama can affect virtual worlds and video games. But I do suspect it's a temporary move, as this kind of hurts South Korean companies and the Chinese publishers that publish those games, so it's a lose-lose. And I think it'll be a temporary measure, but for now, all new Korean games are banned from China. Next up, we're done with weird industry news and back to actual MMO news. Rise of Icarus will be receiving the Corruption of Light update on March 22nd, which is a biggie as it introduces 2 new zones as well as a new dungeon and 3 new legendary dungeons. Most importantly though, the game's level cap will increase to 55 and more than 30 new mounts will be added to the game. Rise of Icarus came pretty far since its Western release less than a year ago in July of 2016. It launched with an absurdly low level cap of about 20-ish, but now it stands at about 55. Which makes it so there's a lot more stuff to do. The game is still going fairly strong as well, with about 1,600 users online at any given time on Steam alone, and likely much more than that on Nexon's own launcher. So if you ever got into Rise of Icarus, now may be a great time to do so. Next up, a big update for Shards Online. Actually, the game is now being called Legends of Aria. It's been rebranded as such because it is now a fully fledged game, whereas Shards Online was smaller in scale. Legend of Aria is aiming bigger, so the landmass will be much bigger and will fit thousands of players on a single continent, whereas before it had less than 100 or so. The core hardcore elements of the game are still there. It's still inspired by classics like Ultima Online. They'll still have a hardcore PvP full loot system, and the community elements of the game as well as customizable shards will still be a part of the game, so the community dev tools will still be there. It's a new game, and they just want to make the official experience a more traditional MMORPG experience. Beyond the name change though, it's basically still the same game, just a bigger game world, and they're aiming to actually launch the game on Steam sometime in the spring, but that is not officially confirmed just yet. They're aiming for the spring. Next up, some positive news from Repopulation Online. Looks like the folks at MMOs.com are finally starting to take the chat spam in MMOs.com seriously. They've already started banning some of the bots, and they've implemented some filters to stop the spam, though it's worth mentioning they did stop the spam briefly for I believe a few hours, and the spam came back, and it stopped again, and now it's back again. So they're implementing some new filters in the chat to try banning them, but it's the first time we see them actually take notice and work on fixing this issue. I can't say they'll be successful for sure, but it's good to see them working on it, because it's been redonkadonk. Up next, we had a pretty big update for WildStar launched this last week. The Power of the Primal Matrix expansion launched, which added the prime difficulty setting for dungeons, as well as a new dungeon called Cold Blood Citadel, and a new expedition. There's also a big event going on for WildStar right now. If you log into the game before 3 PM Eastern Time today, you'll get a free level 50 character. Even if you're not crazy about the game, it doesn't hurt to take advantage of this promo, as it ends later today at 3 PM Eastern. And while everyone's been saying WildStar's death is imminent, the folks at Carbine Studios clearly aren't giving up, and that is awesome to hear. Keep it up, guys. Up next, a small bit of news for Dauntless, the Monster Hunter-esque game. And the news is that they showed off some new content, some new gameplay trailer for the game at PAX East, and it still looks pretty awesome. Unfortunately, there's still no release date. All we know is that it'll be launching sometime in 2017, and it'll be a free-to-play ARPG-style Monster Hunter game, and that sounds pretty awesome, actually. And since Monster Hunter Online isn't available in the West, there won't be too much competition for Dauntless. I mean, the fact that it's free-to-play too makes it super accessible. I'm looking forward to this one. Moving right along, the Trio of Saviors Hunting Grounds update is set to go live tomorrow on March 14th, and it's set to be a pretty big update. With it comes a new zone called the Hunting Grounds, which is a new type of map where, quote, players don't have a specific goal in mind, end quote, which is a fancy way of saying it's a grinding map, with monsters in the Hunting Grounds dropping silver and items at a higher rate. And many of those items will actually be unidentified. You have to take them to a vendor in town to identify them. They get new gear between levels 120 and 170. And while grinding I think gets a bad rep, and this area is a grinding zone, I think it's actually a great idea. Sometimes you want to just log into a game and progress in that game with just grinding, mindless grinding, and it actually feels nice sometimes, so I think it's a really smart move. Also worth mentioning is that IMC Games is hosting a leveling up event until April 4th, which rewards players with a bunch of free stuff as they level up. So if you never played Trio of Savior or you played in the past, now is a great time to come back and check it out. And while the game didn't live up to some people's expectations, it's still doing quite well, averaging about 3,100 players online at any given time. That's actually one of the most played MMORPGs on Steam, so they're still rocking it. And it has amazing music, so I say it's worth checking out. Next up, now that Albion Online has an official release date in mind of July 17th, things are moving pretty quickly for the game. The game's Galahad update is set to go live on the 13th, and it's a big one, and it'll be introducing an entirely new world to the game with an improved world map, redesigned UI, biome cities, expeditions, world bosses, and a lot more. Things are coming together very quickly, and the game is again set to launch officially on July 11th. You can actually see some of those UI elements in the video in the background. It is the official update trailer for the game. Next up, we have something for Elder Scrolls Legends. The game is officially launched on PC. Unfortunately though, it's only available on PC right now. A mobile version will come out for both Android and iOS. All of these games typically do have Android and mobile ports because they do quite well on there. The cool thing about Elder Scrolls Legends is the game's multi-laning system and just overall pretty high production value. It's got a pretty in-depth story, multiple classes, and a lot more going on. If you like card games, check it out. And again, expect more of these card games because Blizzard made about $400 million last year on Hearthstone, and because they made so much money, everyone's like, we gotta get in on that, so expect more of these card games going forward. And speaking of card games, we have Faeria. The game officially left early access and officially launched this last week as well. And unlike Elder Scrolls, you can actually play Faeria on mobile right now, only on iOS for the time being. An Android version will be coming soon. I've actually did a first look for this one already, and I've played it quite a bit on stream as well. It's a game I personally really enjoy, so if you like really slick, quality, non-RNG card games, give Faeria a try. And for those curious about the numbers, it's averaging about 1,000 players and a bit more on Steam at any given time now that it actually launched. I expect those numbers will actually move up as well. Moving right along, Battle Royale game Playerunkowns Battlegrounds is set to launch on Steam on March 23rd. Oddly enough, I was playing the game earlier during the closed beta, and they actually said they ran out of pre-orders on their game page, which makes no sense. How do you run out of a pre-order for a digital game? Literally makes no sense, but you'll be able to buy the game when it launches on Steam's Early Access again on March 23rd. The guy who made the game has a lot of credibility. He's the guy that made the original Battle Royale mod for Arma, and he actually worked on King of the Kill as well. So this is the third time making the same game, so he knows what he's doing. He knows this genre better than anyone else, so I suspect it'll do amazing. Up next, a small update for Dark and Light. This game was supposed to launch at the end of last year, so in December of 2016, but it never did, and it's still not out quite yet either. All we know is that quote-unquote development is still going strong according to people making the game, but there's still no release date just yet. Snell Games said that the team was working on polishing up the game's graphics, particle effects, animations, and other stuff for early access later this year. Later this year doesn't sound very reassuring when it was supposed to come out last year. Hopefully later this year doesn't mean like 6 months from now, but we'll have to wait and see. Next up, the Repopulation is back. The game originally launched its first Kickstarter back in 2012. It shut down shortly after it launched in December of 2014, and now it looks like it is back for good on Steam Early Access. But rather, at this point, we should call it Steam Late Access. Aha! Anyway, the game is back. Check it out if you want. We run along a bit of unfortunate news from Dean Hall's sci-fi MMORPG Ion, and the news is that the game has officially been abandoned. It was announced back in June of 2015, and Dean Hall, the guy who worked on DayZ, says he wants to make a game that's not a game. He wants a game that is a universe built not on scripts and quests, but on the laws of physics, biology, and chemistry. A simulation MMO that explores mankind's expansion to space, and all these other fun buzzwords. He did deliver on one part of that promise, that the game is not a game because the game is dead already. And the only footage we got was this kind of like concept art style footage, but rest in pepperoni, Ion. Next and last bit of news is for a mobile game called Flameverse Blaze. It used to be called Flame X Blaze, and actually is still called Flame X Blaze in Japan. Though Flame X Blaze is one of those names that like a 12-year-old thinks sounds really cool. Not sure where else they got that name. Anyway, it's a mobile 3v3 MOBA, which was developed in Japan and is launching in English markets later this year, it looks like. The video you're seeing in the background is the first English trailer for the game. It's developed by Square Enix, and the folks behind this game are apparently Square Enix veterans. You got some people that worked on The World Ends With You, Final Fantasy 13, and some of the Kingdom Hearts games, so you got some big shots working on this one. But we'll have to wait and try it when it comes out. The average game is supposed to only last about 10 minutes, which I guess is nice and bite-sized for mobile. Anyway, guys, that's it for MMO News this week. I'll see you guys tomorrow for the podcast. Later, guys.